Mind Escape. We have episode number 102 today. We're going to be talking about the origin of life, Panspermia and Abiogenesis. You can check us out at Patreon, patreon.com/Mike and Maurice. For $2 a month, you'll get access to exclusive interviews and content. I want to give a shout out to 3 new Patreon members. We have Justin, who this episode's for you. You asked for an episode about panspermia, and we're doing it. We were probably going to do it anyways, but a little something for you. And Chris, a new Patreon member, and actually Dick Kahn, one of our guests in the past, and author
nice.
of DMT and My Occult Mind 1 and 2. Shout out to you as well. And check us out at our website, mikeandmauricemindescape.com. There's a SoundCloud player on there, so if you just want to listen to the audio, it's all up on there. And I know it's been a little bit, but it's been a few weeks, but we're back. And hope
Happy New Year, my man.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Hope everybody had an amazing holiday. Had to do a little bit of traveling to visit family. Had to go to a wedding. Was sick for a little bit. It's been a whole little spiel here. What about you? Any?
I had a little virus before the holidays, but yeah, it's been a long couple of weeks. I was up in Boyne, and now we're back and ready to rock and roll.
For sure. So let's jump into it here. Most people, when they think about the origin of life, there's religious people will say God created life, humans, all the stuff. But from a scientific standpoint, we don't really talk about it that much, or at least when I talk with people, nobody ever brings this kind of stuff up. But where does life come from? And there's 2, I would say, competing theories that are better than most. One being that the academic.
You're talking about single cell organisms, correct?
I'm talking about life, period, like going from organic compounds to actual living, yes, cellular organisms and whatever. We're talking about like when the Earth was in its infancy still. I think the Earth had been around for about 1 million years, and then 3.5 or 1 billion years, and then 3.5 billion years ago is when most scientists will agree that's when the first fossilized organisms have been found from. So abiogenesis is what most academics would hang their hat on or put their chips in their corner for, because it's just what people are taught in school now. It's what we were taught in school.
And what precisely is that? Go ahead.
Abiogenesis is the natural process of which life comes from organic compounds, like I mentioned. So, but they've tried to mimic. We'll talk a little bit about this guy in a few minutes, but Stanley Miller, who came up with an experiment where he was trying to recreate the conditions on Earth, all like 3.5 billion years ago, which he had. I'll look it up, but I think it was methane and let me see if I can find. I wrote it down here.
Because I've heard of some theories where they're talking about electricity being introduced to organic matter or whatever.
Well, that's part of it. That's one of the. So his experiment included water, methane, ammonia, and hydrogen, and then yes, he would it would be in like a glass, jug, like a flask or whatever, and then they would also put electrodes to it to run that. And I think that they've, like, recently, even though he's been dead, I think since, I don't know, like 97 or something like that, and he started the experiment in 52, I believe, and that's what people thought the conditions were on the Earth at the time. And so I think he came out with like 20 amino acids, which are like the building blocks, or one of the building blocks for life, which is kind of interesting.
Right.
And they theorized too that there was this whole RNA world before there was the DNA world, and RNA again is the building blocks. So
what is it? A less sophisticated strand?
Yeah,
of
it's just like a
of
precursor.
information.
Yeah. Um, let me see here. Also, so that was one of the main speculations, and that's probably the top experiment that's at least that I know of that's trying to prove that theory. But if you look it up, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that just says, yeah, it's unknown what the exact conditions were. And now they think the Earth was actually from what he thought it was in 1952 to what it is now. We know the Earth was probably made up of completely different stuff, or there was different different conditions at the time than what we originally thought. Um, so and we need life needs carbon and water, um, and then you have like lipids, which are fatty cell walls, carbohydrates, your cellulose, sugars, amino acids, provide for metabolism and protein, and
Uh-huh.
nucleic acids. So all that stuff's important. Um, but again, it's a theory because it's never been proven. We don't know exactly what the Earth was like. We have an idea, and it's obviously going to keep evolving, just like any other theory in science or knowledge in science. It's always evolving. So there's that. But we also know that there's different other theories too that are kind of, some people would call them kind of wacky and stuff. I think, like I said before, abiogenesis and panspermia are probably, in my opinion, the two most credible ones, if you will. Or the,
Well, what's funny is how can you call it wacky when you got these Neil deGrasse Tysons saying they know all this stuff, but in reality, it's just a theory too.
yeah, I mean, we've covered that pretty heavily on the show. The fact that there's a lot of certainty out there when in reality what's known today is for sure going to be changed or altered or whatever in the future in terms of knowledge. It's we're going to look like idiots 1,000 years from now. So
Right.
I don't know. I get it because in a certain sense, it's almost like you need
You need the authority to, you need
not
the,
even the authority, but you just to push these ideas out and continue. It's this like game almost like you keep pushing the ball forward, but you're going to be wrong. But it's pushing for the next generation, the next generation. It's this like ever evolving thing, is where we would probably have the evolution of, um, our bodies and biology and stuff too. I think there's an evolution of consciousness and evolution of pushing this idea of civilization and humanity along. So I think that's where it's dicey because these are all just inventions of mankind. They're ideas, whether they're measurements or whatever. We're still creating all of this. So
well, what do you think about that show, The Cosmos? Because all the facts in there, they're pretty much pushing them like this is fact. Although they're so-called facts.
if
Because
if
they go back to the beginning of everything and
if there
they're
was a
explaining
fact, it
how,
would be
like,
a fact, meaning there'd be no reason to question or contradict. And we had Brian Keating on, the guy that wrote the book Losing the Nobel Prize, and he teaches at University of California, San Diego, and I believe that's where Stanley Miller did his work. And I think he said that there's like a wing dedicated to the Stanley Miller guy there, but they know now that a lot of that guy's work was probably either wrong or not wrong, but just it's an interesting experiment. But was that exactly what the Earth was like at the time? Could there be other explanations? And could a lot of these explanations be right? Meaning panspermia, which we'll get into in a little bit, abiogenesis, they could both be right, meaning that maybe Earth or maybe the planet here could develop life on its own, but maybe it also could be seeded as well. So I mean, I don't rule that out. Maybe life's just prevalent throughout the universe or the building blocks or organic compounds, whatever.
so to sum up that thought, from all the stuff that we know, we still cannot create life from nothing.
Again, there's the experiments I just mentioned that they'll take the chemicals that I mentioned, uh, ammonia, methane, hydrogen, and water, and then they'll induce evaporation and then simulate lightning by using the electrodes. So there's that. I mean, it's not nothing, but I wouldn't say that that's, again, we know that the conditions were different from recent studies and stuff. So,
Right.
but making the building blocks of life, yes, is not the same thing as making life.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's a loss for the science department.
I wouldn't say it's a law. Again, I think it's interesting. Here's the thing: is whether that is the theory or the right explanation for how life came to be or not. It's still a scientific experiment that showed some results. So that's how I would look at that. Um, I think what you push back on, and which I do too, is just the idea of knowing and being like 100% certain, like empirically,
Right.
this is what it is. You can't dispute it. Well, you can dispute it, and it will be wrong. So that's what I'm saying.
Well,
Like
when you make a TV show and you're showing me how eyeballs were created with these single cell organisms like swimming up towards light and stuff, yeah, maybe a lot of that is based on scientific fact, but you're showing me different galaxies and all that. You don't know. You're just assuming. And a lot of the problem is a lot of people in today's age, they see this stuff on a Discovery or a History Channel and they're 100% convinced that this is true fact.
right.
There's no disclaimer saying this is just theory. That's all my point.
No, I agree with that. And I think more scientists should just be like, hey, we don't have all the answers, but this is our best guess at the time based on, not guess, but this is our best observation at the time based on what we know to be
Right.
true. That's how it should be presented. And I think if it was presented that way, you'd probably have more people, whether it's young kids in school or older kids in high school, maybe people that weren't normally into science before, it would wake them up to it. Do you get what I'm saying? Like it would be
Yeah, it
like,
might spawn a whole new
this is a
generation of
mystery. Like,
scientists.
yeah, this is a mystery. We have a good idea, but it's not set in stone. I think that's a, why not jump into that if you're interested?
Well, I think humans are drawn to mystery in all of that, assets of life. So,
We are. I would agree with that 100%. So that's pretty much abiogenesis. Like I said, that's favored by most scientists. Some would even say it's like you, like you love, unquestionable or unfallible. But I don't think that that's the case.
no, I'm not trying to disregard the science. I'm just
You are. You are. That's,
fight the power.
Um, I think that, yeah, I think that that's pretty much where we'll leave abiogenesis. Well, I mean, there's not.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It's not. I mean, okay. Well, I will say though that the this is another thing aspect about it is the earliest life forms on Earth they found are these putative fossilized microorganisms. So have you ever seen those videos of those like underwater thermal vents? They're like
Mm-hmm.
like little volcanoes underwater. They think that that's what contained the first life on the planet, meaning that those hydrothermal vents, I think they're precipitates I think that's precipitates or precipitates, something along those lines. They may have lived as early as 4.2 billion years ago. So, like I said before,
Insane.
3.5 billion years is the date where scientists will all agree that that's when life began. But then there's, oh, well, this could be considered life and that could be considered life. The oceans formed around 4.4 billion years ago. And not long after 4.5 4.5 billion years ago is about when the Earth was formed. So
You better get your numbers right. They're gonna light you up on
I'm
Reddit.
just some of the stuff's. No, I don't give a shit about that. That's the dying zone for knowledge. I used to look, I like Reddit. I think that there's some cool stuff on there.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of negativity. Probably the most negativity. I mean, since we do this show, obviously, we're on social media, getting our stuff out there, but we're also checking out other people's stuff. It just seems like Reddit I initially thought was like where intelligent conversations were happening, and I don't know if it's changed or what, but I just feel like there's been a lot of negativity on there, and I don't think that you can get to truth through negativity per se. I think you can critique, maybe criticize, if somebody's being belligerent or malignant about something, but at the same time, I don't think that that's where I no longer think that's where intelligent conversations are happening. I think it's happening on podcasts. I think it's happening on I don't even know where else, in person. I mean, we need to get back to that. I was just
Right.
having a conversation with some people in the office yesterday that I probably would have never had with, you know, some average people on the street, or maybe even some of our friends, because people just don't talk about that kind of stuff. I was kind of shocked. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. All right, so yeah, the thermal vents, that's like the latest theory for panspermia, that's where those were formed, the maybe because of the volcanic activity, but I don't know, is that supposed to supplement the electricity aspect of it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, cuz how is electricity getting to the bottom of the ocean?
I don't know.
Yeah. So, or maybe there were shallow pools of them. I honestly don't know, but I will say that we all don't know. So,
Right. Accept that fact, and then we can move forward.
all right, so let's jump to panspermia now. Panspermia comes from an ancient Greek, or ancient Greek terminology. Pan means all, and sperma means seed. If you couldn't guess.
Yes, yes.
And this is the hypothesis that life exists throughout the universe, and it gets seeded to different places, whether it be via meteorites, comets, different celestial bodies, cosmic dust.
It hitches a
Um,
ride and
yeah, hitches a ride,
goes
or
across
gets
the
trapped
galaxy.
in a an orbit and then comes down on the planet. Um, and there's different uh, again, there's different theories on how that happens, and there's even different theories within the theory. So there's normal panspermia, which is just the idea that there's life out there. It gets tossed around into different places. It just keeps getting spread around, whether, like I mentioned, through dust or meteorites or comets. And then there's directed panspermia, which is the idea that I think we say extraterrestrials or aliens. It's just some intelligence is spreading it out there, as opposed to just doing it on its own or through natural processes. So that would
Right.
be one. There's also, I think is it pseudo panspermia or soft panspermia? The idea that the prebiotic organic compounds, the building blocks of life, uh, come from like a solar nebula, and then get distributed again throughout the universe.
And that would be responsible for the electricity.
Yeah, I mean that would still actually probably include abiogenesis of a certain kind, I guess, in a way, um, because it's
Yeah,
just
it's intense to
because
think
it's just
about.
raining down the building blocks. It's not actually raining down life. So then you would still need some catalyst to happen when.
Right. The life has to start somewhere, so it's
Right,
almost like the panspermia. It's really not even answering that because the life has to form somewhere on some planet.
right.
Still has to form first, then it can spread out.
Well,
So,
no, because
it,
so this one's just saying that the building, so like organic compounds, like carbons, the stuff that I mentioned before, that
uh-huh.
if those get rained down, then the process can then begin again for life. But it's not actually, you don't need that. This one specifically, the or molecular panspermia, whatever the hell it's called, is specifically talking about, I believe, the building blocks, and then abiogenesis happens. So it's still panspermia, but the life isn't coming from other life, if that makes sense.
I
It's
got you. I
just
was a
the
little
building blocks as
confused.
opposed to like
And then them coming together is what they've
right.
come to all come together at the right time, at
You
the
would
right place, with the
you
right temperature.
yes, you would still need abiogenesis to happen of some sort. I
It's
think
such a crazy thing, and we're such a creature of odds and things like that, and the
right,
odds of just happening. Well, first of all, we know it happened. We're here, so
right.
which odd do you want to take? I love the DNA coming together as like a 737 being constructed by wind blowing through a junkyard or a tornado whipping through a junkyard
Yeah,
and building a plane. That's the same odds as DNA being formed
right.
randomly.
Well, and that's why
That always.
people argue that maybe there isn't life out there, that we are the only things, and it is this random act of, 1 in a trillion, billion, whatever.
Yeah, but there's enough space out there where if it happened once, it probably happened again.
I agree with you, but I'm saying that's the argument by those people that believe that we're the only thing and this is it and it's just an accident. Because there's a lot of scientists that believe that. There's a lot of cool ones, the ones that we have on the show.
Well, where do
and
they
then there's
think
the
that
not
any
cool ones that don't
right?
believe in
It's not
anything.
necessarily not cool. My question is,
It's
you
it's
say the
it's
big.
cool and not cool, bro. But go on.
Oh, here's the thing. You say the Big Bang happened, okay, but where did the material come from that it was inside of that pinhead? Where did that come from, bro? That's what they always leave out. It had to have formed
Well, you
from
could go on.
somewhere.
Well, now that's not just the only. Now a lot of people believe in the multiverse theory, so that there's all these universes or little bubbles that maybe two bubbles collided, or maybe there was one bubble that split in. I don't know exactly, but I just know that the multiverse theory is the new flavor of the day when it comes to that kind of stuff, and it
And
also.
that's fine too, but still, it still boils down to one thing. So you telling me that a God doesn't exist? Okay, that makes it that's somewhat credible. But then, where did your material come from?
Well, okay, so that's one of the critiques of panspermia, though, is that it doesn't actually answer where life comes from. It's almost just like passing it off.
Uh-huh.
You're not. You get what I'm saying? You're not answering where does life come from. You're just saying, oh, it came from out there. So it's not answering it. It's just explaining maybe where it came from. But out there
Right.
is infinity too. So I think that's.
And I don't want to cop out and say, "Oh, it's God," but at the same time,
But you
well, why
are.
not say it is God? Because you're saying it's nothing.
I'm not.
No,
I'm not
well,
saying anything. I'm saying these are the facts, Jack, and what you want to do
and
with.
I'm saying these are the questions, Brestons.
I'm I'm pointing out the facts, and all I'm saying is that I'm telling you what people I know that believe in like nothing metaphysical or nothing outside of this earth. Just this is the accident. We're here. Let's do our
Right.
best. That's the argument that those people make, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm open to anything. If you tell me that that's the case, I'm not gonna again believe you because I know everything's wrong. But I think that you can assign probability to certain things based on what we do know, and whether it is going to be wrong or not, you put you put your money behind the best horse. So that's just all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um,
You can also look at it like we're here regardless, so let's focus on maybe making our existence better and helping people that are here with us.
well, of course.
But then we wouldn't have a show, so let's continue.
All right, so those were the different little versions of panspermia. Also, there's just the idea that microscopic life forms hitched a ride on a comet. Comets, like extremophiles, which are organisms that can be trapped in debris. They can live in like crazy conditions. I know on that One Strange Rock miniseries,
Hardables or what?
there's these extremophiles that live in like acid pools. Like it's crazy to even
Yeah.
think that something could live in that, but there are things that do. So maybe some of those are tardigrades, water bears.
Tardigrades, yeah. Didn't they survive like 5 cataclysms?
They survive. They can survive like nuclear explosions. They can survive the hottest heats. They can survive the coldest colds. They can survive pretty much any conditions and in space. And I think they just realized how they're able to do that. I just read an article tardigrades or water bears, they dry out, and then once they dry out, they're still living somehow, but they're in this proxy state, and then once water gets added to them again, they become alive again. So that's kind of how
Hmm.
they do their thing. And I think that they
Like
just
a form of hibernation or something.
right, and I think they accidentally got dropped off on the moon. There was some as part of an experiment.
Accidentally.
Well, no, there was a crash. I don't know what country was doing it. They crashed or something on the moon, or their probe or something, and some of these tardigrades got out. I don't know exactly. I forget the exact story, but I'm pretty sure that there's tardigrades or water bears living on the moon now. So,
Well, there you go.
um, and I think that's an interesting thing too. Is I think we do our best to, like, when we go into space. I don't know the exact protocols. I'm sure people can look it up, but I'm sure they're trying to not contaminate space somehow. But at the same time, isn't that kind of impossible? At some point, I think something's going to hitch a ride on a rocket, or
Right, we're
um,
almost causing panspermia already.
I think some astronauts. I don't know. Was it the Russians or somebody? They recorded marine life living on the outside of. I believe it was the International Space Station. I could be mistaken, but
Crazy.
I read so many articles, I just start forgetting some of the details here. But
Well, I
uh,
did read a bunch of things about how we barely even know, like we know all the animals and stuff, but we barely know all the living organisms. And the
right,
stuff that we are, are aware of is like 5% or 10% of the stuff. A lot of it's these single cell organisms like you were talking about that live in
right.
insane conditions, because number one, we can't even get to those insane conditions. And number two, we can't even get to those insane conditions. But yeah, like 90% of the oceans aren't even excavated. So
Excavated.
excavated. Thank you, dictionary man.
No, you just sounded. It sounded like a. I don't even know what that sounded like. I don't know if you're trying to say escalator or what, but oh yeah, okay, so this is what I was talking about. 2018, these Russian scientists published a paper that said they found DNA on the exterior of the International Space Station.
Hmm.
Said it was um it concluded that the presence of wild land and marine bacteria DNA. So it's possible for that stuff to live up there. Is basically what this is saying.
Oh, I believe it.
Um. So the first person to, I think, well, there's Aristotle, who came a little bit later, that thought something along these lines. It was obviously a little bit wrong, but the first to mention the term of panspermia was, and we didn't mention him when we did our pre-Socratic Greek episode slideshow, but the Greek philosopher Anaxagoras came up with the term panspermia. So kudos to you, bro.
Wow. That's some inventive thinking, that's for sure.
One of
Back
the
then.
biggest proponents for panspermia was Fred Hoyle, who's a famous scientist and huge proponent of it.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say our cousin Bob Gardner. I remember him telling
That's
us
how we,
about that.
yeah. I mean, okay, so realistically, that's how we learned about panspermia.
Right from the source, right
Um,
from the scientist.
I didn't even realize we didn't have the cams up the whole time. We had our intro page, but there we go.
Oh, well, we can get that information, let people really see what we got.
We're just a little foggy from the long break. That's all. Lots of
Yeah, we had some
technical
issues.
Oh,
Yep.
I don't even want to talk about my camera. I want to bash this thing against the wall.
That's funny because one of my buddies was just texting me. I've actually recommended this Canon M50 because it's pretty reasonably priced, and I think it does a damn good job. But
No, I like
my other
it.
buddy, yeah,
I want to bash it. So
yeah. Calm down. Our buddy Chris, I borrowed some of his gear, and when I was loading up to take it back to his house, one of the lenses like fell out and rolled across my room.
yeah,
And I looked at it, and it looked like I dinged it a little bit. I was very surprised because I barely dropped the thing, but I texted him And I was saying, oh, if the thing's busted and I did all that, I'll replace it. It was just a kit lens. It wasn't anything too crazy. But he's like,
Right.
oh, I got upset one day and threw it against the wall. So it went from me thinking the thing was could barely withstand a drop from, a couple feet up to this thing getting thrown against the wall. It looked pretty good for that action.
Right.
Kudos to Canon. So
Yeah, no, I like the camera. I just wish that it would work with my program like it's supposed to, which it's not.
yeah,
All these
it's
updates.
something stupid. It's something
It's all
simple,
it's
I bet.
this Mac update, and then they had their own updates. It's all these updates, man.
Uh-huh.
All right, so back to this. So yeah, Fred Hoyle, huge proponent of the idea. Um, who else here? Oh, in 2018, some astronomers from Harvard um, presented a model that basically talked about galactic panspermia, that galaxies, um, exchange these like spores or dormant spores, something along those lines. So
Uh-huh.
that's an interesting
Hmm.
version of that. Let's see here. Something like, that Oumuamua, that flat um, interstellar, like cigar shaped
Yeah,
meteorite that
yeah.
came. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so something like that, if that hit a planet or even dust from that came off and it had stuff on there, that could be an example of that. 2019, scientists detected sugar molecules uh, in meteorites. So that's kind of interesting too.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, so that's the other thing is there's certain types of meteorites that have the organic compounds needed for life. They're called chondrite meteorites, and I forget what show I was watching, but they'd watch them fall from the sky. There's no way to tell exactly what kind different ones are, but when it's a chondrite one, I'm pretty sure they've got like sulfides and some of the different organic compounds in there are ready to go, which is an interesting because all it would take is one of those to land with all the stuff. Yeah, uh, it's got sulfides and silicate and tons of other things I'm not even going to get into or mention
Well,
because
we know the asteroids were bombing the Earth for centuries.
yeah,
Well, not even centuries, millions of years before
right,
anything sprung up. So
right.
that's definitely in the wheelhouse there.
And they're non-metallic meteorites, which I think a lot of them are. I don't know what the ratio is between the two. I think the chondrite ones are not as prevalent as the iron ones, and but yeah, they contain organic compounds and building blocks for life. There was that paper that was just put out last year talking about how octopi could be
Right.
alien, like maybe they're eggs or a frozen one. I mean, I don't even know how that would work, but something along those lines where they would hitch a ride on a comet, which is frozen. Obviously, it's ice, frozen water, and then land.
That's insane.
And I don't
But isn't
know.
their DNA like so not similar to ours? That's
Right?
that's
Yeah.
the conclusion they came
There's
to.
a few different things, but yeah, that's one of them. And then I've heard people dispute that too. But anywhere where somebody's got a cool idea, there's some other dude waiting to jump on it. That's usually how it
Of
works.
course.
Well, I mean, but you want to be right though too, so it's a double-edged sword. I think again, it's creating this culture where instead of all this fighting and being adversaries and trying to debunk people, just do the experiments, and what's right is, or what's most obvious or probable is what it is. And there's no reason to like take people down. I just don't understand that aspect of it. There is also a theory called radiospermia, which is the idea that radiation pressure from the stars is pushing all sorts of microscopic life forms and dust throughout space. So that's another
Hmm.
idea. Carl Sagan, who was a kind of, I don't remember throughout his whole career, but early on he was a proponent of panspermia, and even tossed around the idea of directed panspermia. He didn't really like this theory. I think he was actually a critic of the radio panspermia theory. There's the lithopanspermia theory too, which is the transfer of organisms that are basically trapped in rocks from one planet to another, or via interstellar, like a Muamua, and stuff like that. So within panspermia, you have all these like little subsidiary theories that are more detailed and exactly what's going on.
Lots of vehicles for this stuff to get around on.
Right. And there was an article I read yesterday, actually. It was going around online talking about how initially they thought Jupiter was this like shield for us from meteorites, comets, that kind of stuff, celestial bodies, because it's so big that it keeps us somewhat safe. But the article talks about this new theory that it's actually shooting stuff at us. So it's sending stuff our way and actually doing the opposite of what we initially thought it was. So
it's sending what, meteorites and
meteorites and space dust, whatever kind of stuff's out there. And I mean, if it's big, so if it gets hit itself, you can imagine all the stuff coming off of it.
Yeah, but isn't it just gas?
I think so, but let's check here.
Weird. It's funny how when you're in high school, or when you're in, even elementary school, you learn about all the stars and stuff, and you just in your brain think that we've been there.
Right.
We know all this stuff. We've been on the planets. We've been walking around them, but in reality, I guess we have sent probes and whatnot to a lot of them, but...
Yeah, I think, there's some stuff. There's some stuff out there, and you've got the meteor, the belt out there that has all the stuff in it too. I'm drawing a blank right now.
What, the Van Allen belt?
No, isn't that the radiation one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what people use to say that we never went to the moon.
Well, yeah, that's what. Yeah.
The Van Allen would have destroyed all the footage or whatever.
Right.
Well, it's going to be interesting in the next 20 years with all the new camera lenses. I know Canon made some insane glass for these telescopes that are like
right,
a couple thousand megapixels, and then they can just keep blowing up the image and looking deeper and deeper. So
right,
we'll find something.
Yes.
The truth is out there.
So Jupiter is all gas. I just wanted to make sure, because some of these planets might be made of little bits of hard material. But yeah, so that, in terms of then that's gas, then it has to be the fact that it's shooting stuff off based on, I don't even know, maybe just orbit.
It's gravitational pull, maybe. Yeah.
Gravity. And again, gravity, which we don't 100% fully understand at this point. So I want to talk about directed panspermia, because we only briefly touched on it. There's people that have talked about this idea, one being Francis Crick, who was the Nobel Prize winner, who came up with the DNA helix, or the strands of DNA concept. And you were talking about that, the 747 being assembled, a tornado ripping through a junkyard.
Right.
But
again, who even knows how truthful that is?
Right. Well, again, exactly. That's coming from a human being, so it's probably flawed.
Yeah, it's probably shit. Yeah.
But Leslie Orgel too. They also proposed that could be spread by an advanced civilization. There's the theory again that there was.
I'm sure that one's been poo-pooed all
there's
over the place.
The theory of like an early RNA world. Just more of the. It was like set up, if that makes sense. Like it was set up to receive. Almost like it was the female sex organs to the later on seeding of it, which became what we know. I mean, it makes sense. That's how life.
That's sweet. I like that. That's almost a sweet little surreal short film.
Yeah.
If you could create some kind of RNA world
Right.
and then drop a bunch of shit in there and see what got all stirred up.
Right. Again, I think a lot of the stuff too is that a lot of the argument against panspermia is that the radiation would kill or burn up or destroy whatever would be needed, but then there's people that say, it could be shielded. There's different ways it could still get there. I mentioned the chondrite meteorites, which they break these things, they crack these things open and find the minerals in there. So if one of those things exploded and actually got to Earth, I think that's how you would probably see that. Yeah, and then you've got the extremophiles, which would be things that can live in insane conditions that we wouldn't even think about.
Exactly. Which, like I said before, we're still discovering more and more of those daily.
Right. What when you think about life, though, I mean, what do you think that one of these processes? Because here's the thing: even if you're a religious person, if you're saying that something can be radiocarbon dated, let's just say it's radiocarbon dated 3.5 billion years ago, or even let's just say a million years ago. Because a lot of people that believe every word of the Bible think that life was created 6,000 years ago, or what was that documentary that we watched where the guy was trying to say like the Grand Canyon's only like 6,000 years old or something like that?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'd have to watch it to get the exact dates. I didn't write that stuff down.
You wrote it. That's your theory.
I'm studying it. I'm praying to it.
Okay, so yeah, so if let's just say the measurements are off, the fact that it goes that far back, or it's showing that far back, even if it wasn't nearly even as far back as they say, it still kind of dismisses that whole thing. So I do think that one of these processes is the answer. That still doesn't discard, by the way, or discredit, I should say, the idea that there could be some ultimate creator, whether it's this energy, primordial energy, or some life force that lives throughout the universe, or consciousness, or whatever the case may be. It still doesn't dismiss that. It's just there's got to be some sort of catalyst to get there.
Exactly. Yeah, that's when my brain really starts to hurt. I remember as a kid I would think back, and if there's a God, well, how did he become? And if there isn't a God, then how did the first whatever
you could do
get there?
You could do the Giant's Marble forever. I mean, you could go in.
Yeah.
Something I think about too, just because we have things that we think are original, like this planet and the things that we do as human beings and things we create, that we couldn't possibly be something trapped inside something else that's trapped inside something else that's trapped inside. But that if you believe in the many worlds theory, the idea that there's infinite universes and there's a version of everything in every single one, well, those are maybe going to be possibly part of something else. I mean, where does it go? We'll never get there. We're never probably even going to be able to prove much about even the many worlds theory, because we haven't, as a species, we've only gotten to the moon. We've put rovers on other planets, and we've sent satellites way out there and sent stuff out of our zone and everything. But what has it actually yielded? Just pictures of stuff out there. It's not, you need I believe you need human beings to get to some of these places to start taking some of this stuff to the next level. I think it's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but I think a good start would be Mars or something along those. What did you think about that Ad Astra movie, by the way?
It was pretty good. It got a little, I don't know. It wasn't like it didn't blow me away or anything, but it was good. It was entertaining. Brad Pitt did a great job. He's always good. Yeah. Tommy Lee Jones was good. Or no, wait.
Tommy Lee Jones is in it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was Harrison
I mean,
Ford for
we
a
won't
second.
give any spoiler alerts. It's if you like, the end's not as good. It's a little depressing. It's not even because of what they find or don't find or anything because of that nature, but it's just because they built it up as this thing. I don't know. I thought it was a good movie, but the ending could have been better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's no 2001. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
But
no.
what can be that? It's quite juice to fill.
I would say it's better than a lot of space movies I've seen recently, though. I mean,
Yeah, the space stuff. I saw that movie High Life, and
definitely better than Star
it
Wars.
was low life, if you will. Yeah.
I still haven't seen that movie Moon with Sam Rockwell. I want to see that.
That's good stuff.
I keep meaning to watch it, and then I don't watch it.
Yeah, no, check it out if you can find it. I'm having a real trouble finding good hardcore, not
Oh, I'm
hardcore,
sure
but good
you are.
harder to find. No one's having trouble finding the hardcore stuff. But like these classic movies, I like a lot of the David Lynch stuff, and
David Finch. What is that? That's like David Spade's character on like Just Shoot Me or something. Finch.
yeah, Finch. Or even I'm trying to find some of these classics like On the Waterfront. If anyone has links, or if it's on Amazon or
Yeah, you can find
whatever it
Maurice's email if you want to send him some stuff. It's the second email on our website under Contact Us. Let's see here. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much the gist of it. If I had
Speaking of Carl Sagan, though, he wrote that movie Contact.
right, and that was a decent movie.
Yeah, I like that. What was that movie with Amy Adams and they? That movie was good.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I think that movie was good in showing that what an alien,
It was just different.
what an alien or an extraterrestrial could be that was intelligent. It doesn't have to be this like gray alien looking thing, or it could be this thing that
Right.
developed in a weird world that has different ways of communicating and stuff. So
It's called Arrival, and that gets back to what that one of our guests was talking about. How we live on Earth, and everything that's in our brain is from our experiences on Earth. We can't even perceive what it would be like to be a different, not a carbon-based
they call it Earth
organism.
Yeah, they call it Earth bias.
Earth bias.
Yeah, that was when we had Matt Tiller on.
I really like that Arrival, though. I recommend that if anyone's looking for a space movie.
Yeah. Let's see here. So
Yeah, it's kind of funny though when we were teenagers and our uncle was telling us about the panspermia idea.
he's actually our cousin. Let's face
Our
it.
cousin.
He's our second or third cousin. Like,
We
who
kind of
knows?
laughed at it. That's how I feel a lot of people are, especially teenagers. They hear stuff like that that's just so out there that they just regard it as poop.
Here's the thing: is I would say that I think we were 13 or 14, maybe even 12. I can't remember, but when I heard that, I was already kind of thinking because I went to Catholic schools growing up and was raised, to believe in God. I guess I don't not believe in God. I just look at the philosophy and what we know, what we don't know, kind of a thing. And I'm open. I'm an open book, and I've had weird experiences that some would say are synchronicities or whatever. So I believe that there's some purpose to all this. I don't know what it is. And if I had to say that, again, you brought up a good point. So if there was a creator God, then who created him or what created him? And if that's the case, it could just go on and on forever.
Yeah.
Which maybe it does. Maybe there are different...
Well, and maybe our brains will never be able to grasp that concept too.
Right. Maybe we are the gods, or maybe we're all a piece of this God that we're all just spreading throughout all the universe. We're just part of a bigger idea, or maybe we're art. Who knows?
Yeah.
But we are here. We are living, breathing magic. We are made up of stardust and crazy things, and we're subatomic particles, vibrating at a certain frequency, and it's crazy, crazy shit, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching a master class with David Lynch. He's one of my favorite directors, and he was
What
talking
about
about
David Finch?
No. Don't shoot me. But he's talking about, we're flying through space and he's just going on and on about the stuff we know. We're like you were saying, we're magic, we're stardust, this and that, and then he's just like, and people are watching their TVs like nothing's happening. It's crazy, because it is. It's crazy. People are out at stores buying T-shirts, watching Degrassi, and Desperate Housewives, and the stuff that we're talking about doesn't even enter their brain. Which, hey, to each its own. Ignorance may be bliss.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was funny though.
That was so funny.
But it's true, man. There's a lot. That's crazy if you really break it down and think about it. It's quite the world.
I think about it often, and I think anybody that's interested in this kind of stuff probably does as well. It's just this daunting, haunting thing. Sometimes I look at people that just are trapped in their day-to-day consciousness and just want to have fun and do things and don't even think about anything existential or whatever. I'm kind of jealous of that. I used to be like that a long time ago. I've always been a curious person, but I used to dabble in the who cares arts a lot more.
Yeah.
And now it's almost impossible for me to go back to that, knowing the shit that I know now, knowing the stuff that we've researched, learned from this podcast, from our guests, from books, all this stuff. So
Yeah.
I look at it as I look at this like it's an opportunity to continue this like I said, this game or this charade that we're gonna push the ball, and whether it's wrong or right or whatever, then the next person's gonna pick it up, and the next person's gonna pick it up, and we're creating this thing. So as far as where we come from, if I had to pick one of those theories that I just talked about, I like panspermia in general. Just the idea that we're being rained down on, or stuff's flying through the universe, and
Sooner or later, it's gonna find a nice little.
whether
pool
it's
to-
organic compounds that land here, like I said, and those seed the chemical or atmospheres, or the atmosphere that's here at the time and creates life, or it comes from a meteorite or a comet or something. I don't think that necessarily matters as much as just the idea that there is life out there. And again, I'll say this again, the origin of life, abiogenesis, would actually prove of how life is created. Now, that still doesn't explain a lot of other aspects to that, but at least there would be some origin there. Panspermia kind of just shifts the narrative over to, well, it came here from somewhere else, therefore it must be prevalent out there. And I think that if panspermia is correct, that there probably is a lot of life out there, if I had to guess, because that would mean that stuff's floating out there. We couldn't be this astronaut. I don't think it could happen that way, where we're this anomaly that happened from panspermia, that it was just this random panspermia event that happened. I think if panspermia is happening, it's happening, and it's happening everywhere. And if abiogenesis is correct, then we could be this anomaly, or maybe there's again this idea that life is also created in other ways, like you said, that we have an earth bias, so maybe there's these crazy life forms that we can't even fathom out there that are made up of crazy chemicals that we wouldn't even expect stuff to survive in. Like I mentioned, there's extremophiles and those organisms on Earth that live in acid pools. So,
or they're so small they're already living among us.
Or that.
Chew on that.
There's a lot of theories having to do with that. I mean, we could have like our gut bacteria could be alien. And that's one of the theories too, is this idea that there's viruses, that like when we get like there's a new strain of a virus or something crazy that we're being rained down on by whatever that is, creating some sort of genetic mutation or something along the lines. That was another part of the theory. I forgot to mention that there's an idea that viruses and diseases and stuff could be coming from elsewhere, that if we're being rained down upon by organisms and stuff, that maybe some of those organisms are foreign, and that's why we can't. Again, I think that
Fight it.
I don't think that that can be verified like any of the other stuff, but it's a cool idea.
Yeah, a few things can be verified. It's just
So yeah, I think panspermia for me. I don't rule out abiogenesis or a combination of panspermia and abiogenesis. Um, from doing this episode and just all the stuff that we just talked about, what do you think?
whew, man, that's a
And I
tough.
want an answer, and I'm going to hold you to it.
Hmm. It's tough, man. I don't know. I hate to say the God thing is a cop out.
You are.
I like the panspermia. I think it opens the. I do you think. I don't think life was. I don't know, man. It's tough. It's tough to commit to one idea or the other.
Whatever one you thought sounded better, I would say.
I do think. Well, we've talked about this before. I do think that life is happening out elsewhere. So could something latch on to a comet or an asteroid and come our way? I definitely think that's a possibility. And what was that weird shaped asteroid again?
Oh, Muamua?
Muamua, which we still don't really know what the hell that thing was.
Right.
I don't know. I like to stay back, not to be a not to be a goon or anything, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't know, so it's hard for me to know if that makes any sense.
I'm simply asking you to say which one you think has a higher probability of being correct.
Yeah, well then I'll go with the pansperm.
Okay. Again, I mean,
Just to support what I was saying earlier, I definitely think that there's life elsewhere
even on
in the universe.
even on the Wikipedia page for like abiogenesis, it says it's not really clear how this happens, but it's like the main theory that. And again, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong or whatever, but just the fact that even on the Wikipedia page, it's like, yeah, it's uncertain that how this exactly went down. That
That's
seems.
good. I like that. What a good disclaimer.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that when you talk to like a scientist, oh, for sure abiogenesis, or like when we
Right.
were in school, that was the theory. We'd watch the videos of like the early days of Earth, and it shows these volcanic pools of chemicals, and lightning strikes it, and then all of a sudden you've got organic compounds and single cell organisms, and it goes on and on. So I think that you're right. It's good that they're pointing that out. We need to
Yeah,
get back.
because Neil deGrasse doesn't say that he goes on a rant and it's talking in the absolute.
I don't. He's. I think he talks about panspermia too, but I think that unless I don't like something specific that somebody says, I try not to make generalizations. Oh, this guy believes this or this guy. But I mean, everybody's able to change their mind too.
That's true. I'm just saying he did narrate the cosmos, and
Right.
there's
Well,
a
that's a
pretty
TV show and there's an agenda. I don't. I mean, if you make a TV show, you have an agenda. Whatever it may be, a good agenda, it may be a bad agenda.
right. It might be teaching you some
Even
facts.
documentaries, most documentaries are objective. They're trying to paint a picture or tell you a story. Whether it's true or not is a different story. I mean, there's a lot of documentaries out there that are controversial, and that's not by accident. It's because the things that they're saying are by nature either controversial or unconfirmable or whatever the case may be. But
Yeah, they're there to make you think. I get that.
and I love documentaries, but again, I'm just pointing out. I like the aspect when they say, "Hey, this is our best guess, but we don't know." But I guess the confusing thing to me is if we don't know, why is everybody putting their chips behind, this one thing? Why are they going all in on this one thing when I just read you off all the different types of panspermia and other theories and stuff like that? I think the chondroite meteorite one's an interesting one, considering they contains all the organic compounds needed for life, and that still doesn't rule out some sort of catalyst happening. So,
Yeah,
um,
and who knows? It might be a combination of a couple of them.
right, and maybe there's many ways that life can arise. Again, we have Earth.
That's true too.
We have Earth bias. We're assuming that what we know through carbon carbon compounds and organic compounds is the only way things can happen, and who knows if that's
Uh-huh.
the case.
Well, like I always say, the truth lies somewhere in between.
Yeah, and it might even not even be that. So this kind of stuff so far. Well, okay, so just an example, like when I was doing all that research, when we were doing that like pre-Socratic Greek philosophy and the Greek philosophers and what years they were born, we don't even have the exact years they were born, who their parents really were. Some we know, some are questionable. Some people question whether Socrates even existed, which I believe he did, but there's a lot of people that will take it there. So I guess my point is, if we can't even get that straight, you're telling me we're going
Hmm.
back 3.5 billion years for sure, possibly even 4.2 billion years, and we're going to have all the answers. I just don't buy it. We can create models all day long. We may never get the answer, but it's definitely fun to speculate, and it's definitely fun to talk about this stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, we're glad to be back after that break. I know, like I said, we apologize for the extension of it. There's a lot of different factors at play, but we're
Well, why
back.
don't you talk about a couple of things in the works here?
Yeah, no, we've got next week, Wednesday, we have Bruce Fenton who's going to be on. We've had Bruce on before. We'll be talking about all the recent UFO stuff, and we'll be talking about some other stuff as well. And we have Laird Scranton coming on at the end of the month. We'll be talking about the earliest civilizations, and he's into comparative cosmology and ancient civilizations and stuff. So we'll be talking about that.
Nice.
Working on a few other people as well. I think people will be really excited about some of the guests that we have coming on soon. I just finished reading DMT and My Occult Mind Part 2, so we're going to try and get Dick Kahn back on here soon.
Beautiful.
And yeah, just some new faces, some old faces, and we're just going to keep the train rolling, and we'll get some good stuff out there.
Nice. It'll be good to catch up with some of those guys and see what's developing.
Yep. And again, thank you to everybody, all our Patreons or patrons out there. We're gonna consider you escapees. That's going to be our fans' names, escapees, because you've escaped your mind. I can't even talk right now. And
This
then,
guy can't escape his mind.
and again, shout out to our new members, Chris, Dick, and Justin. We appreciate you. That's how the show grows. We're not really making money from this. It would be nice if we got to the point where it was pretty much paying for itself, which we're almost there, but stuff costs money, gear and programs, software, that kind of stuff. So, but we appreciate it, and we like doing it. We don't do it for money, but every little bit helps. And
Yeah. Plus, it's good to know people are receiving it well, and
yeah. Well, we've now been doing this for 2 years, so
2 years,
It-
102 episodes.
yeah, we should be cranking more on episodes this year. I plan to do a lot more. I mean, I'm not going to say we're going to get to 200 this year, but we might get to 200 this year.
Well, if you do 2 a week, we should be
Yeah,
clean there.
we'll be getting back to our old schedule, doing at least 2 a week. I know we oversatiated everybody with, I think we did 5 that last week before we went on break here, but we're going to try and step it up a little bit as well. So, anything else?
Sounds good. Sounds good. No, man. Just glad to be
Boris.
back. Hey. Glad to be back and glad to get back in the swing of things.
Sweet.
Start questioning again.
Our resident science questioner, Maurice. This guy
Yeah,
really
I got all the
This
credentials.
guy really hates scientists.
No, I do not.
You
But
do.
if they're going to treat their facts like facts, then we're going to have to call them on the facts. Prove the facts.
I mean, we can get into the philosophy of it. What actually is a fact? Again, what's right today is definitely going to be wrong tomorrow. So,
Very true.
and it doesn't even take that long to get
No.
there, especially with the rate that technology's improving at.
Mhm.
We're gonna look like idiots here very shortly.
Hey, no, because we've backed what we said with this is our thoughts on a particular matter. I definitely have never
yeah.
committed to one thing or another. I know my own.
Well, we aren't scientists when we
Education.
aren't publishing papers. researching stuff, having fun conversations, interviewing people, interviewing other
Yeah,
scientists.
talking to people they can do it. They can make their claims, and
Yeah.
then we'll judge them.
Well, I respect people. If you have a theory and you write a book about it, I respect you. I mean, I love reading. Yeah, I love reading new books and new research and stuff like that too. So I'm definitely down for all that. Just don't tell me that this is the right answer
The
and
all end all.
nothing's going to change from now on because of that. That's just asinine, and people think that way. So,
Yeah.
all right, dude. Well,
Very good, sir.
we will be back next week and back to our normal schedule. So, thank you all for tuning in, and check us out on Patreon. Check out our website, and we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
Cheers.